Madame Zainab did not trust people. She believed that if you left money within reach, it would be taken. If you gave power, it would be abused. If you trusted, you would be cheated. People are only good when they are being watched. "Did you touch this money?" she asked. He tried to explain. "I just wanted." Amina cut him off. "Keep quiet," she whispered. "Please. Hey there. Pour a cup of tea. Get comfy, and let your heart listen. The story's about to start. Welcome to Tales Vibe, where laughter and lessons flow together. If you love a good story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more tales every week, and please tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to know where our story family is tuning in from. Madame Zainab Bello was one of the richest women in Abuja. People knew her name. They feared her presence. They respected her money. She built her wealth from nothing. She did not inherit it. She worked for it. She struggled for it. She fought for it. Over the years, her businesses grew. Properties multiplied. Accounts expanded. Yet her heart grew smaller. Madame Zainab did not trust people. She had reasons. Her first business partner ran away with company funds. The second lied about accounts. A trusted staff once sold her valuables without permission. Even relatives disappointed her. Each time she helped, she was repaid with betrayal. Each time she showed kindness, it was mistaken for weakness. Her children were not different. They rarely visited unless there was something to discuss about land, shares, or future inheritance. They never asked how she felt. They never stayed long. They only wanted assurances. Madame Zainab noticed everything. She noticed fake smiles. She noticed forced greetings. She noticed how people's eyes changed when money was mentioned. Over time, she reached one conclusion. People are only good when they are being watched. She believed that if you left money within reach, it would be taken. If you gave power, it would be abused. If you trusted, you would be cheated. Because of this belief, she lived carefully. She tested people quietly. She watched before she spoke. She listened more than she talked. And sometimes she set traps. Not traps to destroy people. Traps to confirm what she already believed. Madame Zainab did not enjoy these tests. They did not make her happy. They only made her feel right. Being right mattered more to her than being loved. At her age, love felt risky. Trust felt foolish. She told herself she did not need anyone. She had money. She had control. She had power. What else could she possibly need? But deep inside, there was a quiet emptiness she refused to name. She spent most of her time alone. Not because she wanted solitude, but because solitude felt safer. When you are alone, nobody can betray you. New staff came and left. Some lasted weeks. Some months. Few stayed long. Madame Zainab watched all of them closely. She believed everyone had a price. The only question was how long it would take for them to reveal it. One morning, she decided to test someone again. Not because she enjoyed it, but because she needed proof. Proof that her belief was still correct. Proof that the world had not changed. Proof that kindness was still a mistake. She prepared herself calmly. No anger. No emotion. Just observation. Madame Zainab Bello was ready to confirm what life had taught her many times before. That no one is truly honest. Madame Zainab's decision to test someone did not come from nowhere. It came from observation. Among the new workers in her house was a young woman named Amina. She had been working there for a short time. She was quiet. She did her work without complaint. She avoided attention and spoke only when necessary. Madame Zainab noticed her. She noticed that Amina never asked for favors. She noticed that she did not gossip with other workers. She noticed how carefully she handled things that did not belong to her. Still, Madame Zainab remained unconvinced. She had seen people pretend before. Amina was a widow. Her husband had died suddenly and left her with nothing but debts and a small boy named Yusuf. Yusuf was 7 years old. Amina worked to feed them both. Every day mattered. Missing work was not an option. One morning, Amina had a problem she could not avoid. Yusuf had nowhere to stay. She tried asking neighbors. No one was available. She almost stayed back, but fear stopped her. If she did not show up, she could lose her job. So she made a risky choice. She brought Yusuf along. Before entering the house, she knelt in front of him. Her voice shook as she spoke. She told him to behave. She told him to sit quietly. She told him not to touch anything. She explained that Madame Zainab did not like noise or mistakes. If anything happens, she warned, we will both suffer. Yusuf listened carefully. He nodded. He understood more than his age showed. Inside, Amina placed him in a corner and reminded him again. She looked around nervously before stepping away. Her heart was heavy as she left him behind. Every step she took away from her son filled her with fear. Madame Zainab was nearby. Her eyes were closed. Her body was still. She looked like she was resting. Amina did not know that Madame Zainab was awake. Madame Zainab heard everything. She heard the warning. She heard the fear. She heard the love in a mother's voice. She also noticed the boy. Yusuf did not look curious. He did not look stubborn. He looked alert and serious. He looked like a child carrying weight far bigger than his body. Madame Zainab kept her eyes closed. She slowed her breathing. She did not move. This was the moment she had been waiting for. A poor woman, a young child, an opportunity. She told herself this test would be simple. If the boy moved, it would prove her right that if he touched something, it would confirm her belief if he took what was not his. It would end all doubt. Madame Zainab waited. So did the child. Neither of them knew that this quiet moment would change everything that followed. Madame Zainab kept her eyes closed, but her mind was alert. She could feel time passing. She could sense the stillness in the room. After Amina left, there was silence. No movement. No sound from the child. That alone surprised her. Most children could not sit still for long. She expected footsteps. She expected curiosity. She expected a mistake. None came. Still, she did not relax. She had learned never to relax. She adjusted her hand slightly and made sure the envelope beside her was clearly visible. It was thick. Anyone would notice it. Anyone would know it was money. She had placed it there carefully before Amina arrived. It was part of the test she had already decided on. The money was enough to feed a small family for weeks. It was more than Amina earned in months. Madame Zainab knew this. That was why she chose that amount. A test only worked when the temptation was strong. She listened closely. Minutes passed. The child did not move. Her confidence returned. She told herself the waiting only made the result clearer. If the boy was patient, it was because he was watching. If he was quiet, it was because he was planning. She had seen it before. Eventually, she sensed movement. Small footsteps. Careful steps. Slow and unsure. Madame Zainab's heart beat faster, but her face remained calm. She kept her breathing steady. This was the moment she expected. The moment everything would make sense. The footsteps stopped close to her. She imagined the scene without opening her eyes. A small hand reaching out. Fingers touching the envelope. Quick grab. Fear mixed with excitement. She told herself not to feel disappointed. This was how people survived. This was human nature. She waited for the sound of paper. It did not come. Instead, she felt something light touch her leg. The touch was gentle. It was not hurried. It did not feel greedy. She stayed still. She felt warmth where there had been none before. Something soft rested on her knees. She knew immediately it was clothing. A jacket. A small one. Her breath almost changed, but she controlled it. Then she heard a small voice whisper softly. The words were simple. They were not meant to be heard. Madame Zainab felt her chest tighten. She told herself not to react. She told herself it was an act. Children could pretend. Kindness could be fake. She had believed that for years. Then she heard another sound. The light scrape of paper moving across a surface. Not being taken. Being adjusted. She opened her eyes just enough to see without being noticed. The envelope was no longer near the edge. It had been pushed back safely. The boy stepped away and returned to where he had been sitting. No rush. No fear. No excitement. Madame Zainab closed her eyes fully again. Her plan was still working. but not in the way she expected. Something inside her shifted slightly. She did not understand it yet. She did not want to. She told herself to remain focused. The test was not over. It had only just begun. Madame Zainab remained still after the boy returned to his corner. Her eyes were closed, but her thoughts were loud. She replayed what had just happened, trying to find another explanation. Children could be trained, she thought. They could be coached. They could pretend for a reward. She told herself not to soften. She had made that mistake before. One good act did not change a lifetime of proof. Still, she stayed alert, listening for any sign that the child would return to the money. Yusuf sat quietly, but his mind was not at rest. He pulled his knees close to his chest. The jacket he gave away was his only one. He felt the cold but did not complain. His eyes kept going back to Madame Zainab, checking if she was truly resting. He did not think about the money again. He thought about what his mother always said, that when someone was weak, you helped them. That money could be replaced, but a human being could not. He did not see a rich woman. He saw an old person alone. After some time, Yusuf stood up again. Madame Zainab noticed the movement immediately. Her body tensed under the calm surface. This time, she prepared herself for disappointment. Yusuf did not go near the table. He walked closer to Madame Zainab's face. He stretched his hand carefully and touched her wrist. Just enough to feel. Not enough to wake her. He pulled his hand back quickly. She was alive. She was breathing. That was enough. Yusuf nodded to himself and stepped back. He returned to his place and sat down again. Madame Zainab felt something tighten inside her chest. The boy was not checking the money. He was checking her. She stayed still. Time passed again. Longer this time. The boy did not move. He did not fidget. He did not hum. He did not sleep. When Yusuf heard footsteps approaching, he stiffened. He pulled his knees closer and waited. He did not know what would happen next. He only knew he had done what felt right. Madame Zainab heard the footsteps too. She recognized them. Amina was returning. Madame Zainab remained in position. She did not open her eyes. She did not speak. She wanted to see how this would end. She wanted to see fear, truth, and reaction all at once. Yusuf looked up as his mother entered. His eyes widened slightly. He did not smile. He did not wave. He waited. Amina stopped in her tracks. She saw the jacket. She saw the money. Her face changed immediately. Madame Zainab sensed the shift. The air felt heavier. She could feel panic before any word was spoken. This was the moment Madame Zainab had prepared for. The moment where fear would speak louder than kindness. The moment where truth would be forced out. She waited for Amina to speak. And when she did, everything began to unravel. Amina's eyes moved quickly from one place to another. She saw Yusuf sitting quietly. She saw his bare shoulders. Then she saw the jacket resting on Madame Zainab. Her heart dropped. She did not wait to understand. Fear took over before reason could speak. Her first thought was not about the money. It was about losing her job. It was about having nowhere to go. It was about failing her son. She rushed forward. "Yusuf," she whispered sharply, her voice shaking. "What did you do?" Yusuf stood up slowly. He did not cry. He did not hide. He only looked confused by his mother's fear. Before he could answer, Amina turned to Madame Zainab. She bowed slightly and began to apologize. The words came out fast and broken. She begged for forgiveness even though Madame Zainab had not spoken. Madame Zainab remained still. Her eyes stayed closed. Her face stayed calm. Inside, she was watching everything. Amina reached for the jacket, trying to pull it away from Madame Zainab's legs. Her hands shook so badly that she almost dropped it. She kept apologizing as she did it, her voice low and desperate. "I am sorry," she said again and again. "Please forgive us." Yusuf watched silently. He did not understand why his mother was afraid. He only knew that something he did had caused this. He tried to explain. "I just wanted." Amina cut him off. "Keep quiet," she whispered. "Please." She held him close, as if shielding him from punishment. Her body leaned forward in submission. Her eyes stayed lowered. She did not dare to look at Madame Zainab's face. Madame Zainab felt the jacket leave her legs. She felt the fear in the woman's movements. She felt the weight of authority she carried without trying. For the first time in a long while, that power did not feel good. She understood something in that moment. This woman was not afraid of a mistake. She was afraid of survival. She was afraid of hunger. She was afraid for her child. Madame Zainab also noticed something else. Amina never accused Yusuf. She never shouted at him. She never raised her hand. All her fear was directed at herself. The room stayed quiet for a few seconds. The silence was heavy and uncomfortable. Amina's breathing was uneven. Yusuf held onto her wrapper. Madame Zainab decided the waiting was over. She let out a low sound and shifted slightly. Amina froze. Her hands stopped moving. Her breathing stopped. Her body stiffened. Yusuf felt his mother tense and looked up at her. He did not know what was coming. He only knew she was scared. Madame Zainab opened her eyes slowly. She did not rush. She did not shout. She looked at the woman and the child standing before her. This was no longer just a test. This was now a moment of truth. Madame Zainab sat up slowly and fixed her eyes on Amina. Her face was hard, her voice, when she spoke, was cold. "What is all this?" she asked. Amina dropped her head immediately. Her words came out in a rush. She explained about her son. She said she had no choice. She said she would leave at once. She begged not to be sent away. Madame Zainab listened without interrupting. Then her eyes moved to the table. She picked up the envelope and tapped it lightly in her palm. The sound made Amina's heart jump. Yusuf noticed it too and stepped closer to his mother. Madame Zainab's voice rose slightly. "Did you touch this money?" she asked. Amina shook her head quickly. "No, madam. I swear." Her eyes filled with tears. She was not afraid of shame. She was afraid of losing everything. Madame Zainab turned her attention to Yusuf. "You," she said. "Come here." Amina grabbed Yusuf's hand tightly. Her body moved in front of him without thinking. She tried to explain again, but Madame Zainab raised her hand. "I said, let him come." Yusuf stepped forward. His legs shook, but he did not cry. He stood in front of Madame Zainab and waited. Madame Zainab leaned back slightly and pointed at the chair. "This chair is spoiled," she said. "It will cost money to fix." Amina's head lifted in shock. "I will pay," she said quickly. "Please take it from my salary. I will work extra. I will do anything." Madame Zainab watched her closely. She wanted to see anger. She wanted to see blame. She wanted to see the woman turn on the child. It did not happen. Amina placed her hand on Yusuf's shoulder. "This is my fault," she said. "Please don't punish him." Madame Zainab felt a strange pressure in her chest. Still, she continued. She looked at Yusuf. "You caused this," she said. "What will you do about it?" Yusuf swallowed hard. He looked at his mother. He saw fear in her eyes, but he also saw love. He looked back at Madame Zainab. He did not speak immediately. Madame Zainab waited. This was the real test. Not the money. Not the jacket. This moment. She wanted to know if kindness would disappear under pressure. She wanted to know if fear would change the child. She wanted to know if this family would break when pushed. Yusuf took a small step forward. He reached into his pocket. Madame Zainab watched closely. The room felt heavy with expectation. Whatever the boy brought out would decide everything. This was the point where truth could no longer hide. Yusuf's hand stayed inside his pocket for a moment. He hesitated, not out of fear, but out of thought. Madame Zainab watched him closely. Amina held her breath. Slowly, Yusuf brought out a small object and placed it on his open palm. It was a toy car. Old. Scratched. One wheel was missing. To Madame Zainab it looked useless, worth nothing, something that could not repair any chair or pay any debt. She almost dismissed it with a glance. But Yusuf did not drop his hand. "This is what I have," he said quietly. Amina's eyes widened the moment she saw it. Her breath caught in her throat. She shook her head slowly. No, she whispered. Yusuf, please. Yusuf turned to her. It's okay, Mama, he said. It's my own. He turned back to Madame Zainab. It was my daddy's, he continued. Before he died, he gave it to me. I keep it with me every day. Madame Zainab felt something tighten in her chest. Yusuf lifted the toy car a little higher. I don't have money, he said. But you can take this. So you won't be angry with my mother. He stretched his hand forward and placed the toy on the table. The sound it made was soft, but the impact was heavy. Amina covered her mouth with both hands. Tears ran freely down her face. She reached for the toy, but Yusuf stopped her. I want to give it, he said. Madame Zainab stared at the toy. She did not touch it. She could not. Her eyes moved from the broken car to the child's face. There was no fear there, no begging, only sincerity. This boy was offering the only thing he truly owned. Not because he was forced, not because he was threatened, but because he wanted to protect his mother. Madame Zainab felt her throat tighten. She had handled contracts worth billions. She had taken risks that moved markets. None of those moments had shaken her like this. She had expected lies. She had expected excuses. She did not expect sacrifice. The room stayed quiet. No one spoke. No one moved. Madame Zainab finally reached out and picked up the toy car. Felt light in her hand. Too light for the weight it carried. She looked at Yusuf again. You would give this away? She asked softly. Yes, madam, Yusuf replied. It's my best thing. But my mother is more important. Those words broke something open. Madame Zainab looked away. Her eyes burned. She had spent years testing people, and in one moment, a child had undone everything she believed. This was no longer a test. This was a mirror, and she did not like what she saw in herself. Madame Zainab held the toy car in her hand for a long moment. She did not speak. She did not move. Amina stood frozen, unsure of what would happen next. Yusuf remained where he was, his hands by his side. He had already given what he could give. There was nothing left to hold on to. Madame Zainab slowly placed the toy car back on the table. Then she leaned back and released a long breath. The chair is fine, she said quietly. Amina looked up in confusion. Yusuf blinked. There is nothing wrong with it, Madame Zainab continued. It only got wet. It will dry. Amina's knees almost gave way. She grabbed Yusuf for support, tears running freely now, not from fear but from relief. Madame Zainab looked at them both. I was not sleeping, she said. I was pretending. The words hung in the air. Amina stiffened. Her face changed. She did not speak, but her eyes showed hurt. She felt exposed, watched, judged. I left the money there on purpose, Madame Zainab continued. I wanted to see if you or your child would take it. Yusuf looked down. He did not understand why someone would do that. Amina swallowed hard. So you were testing us? She said softly. Yes, Madame Zainab replied. I have tested many people. Most fail. Amina nodded slowly. She did not argue. She did not shout. She only pulled Yusuf closer. Madame Zainab's voice dropped. But today I failed. They both looked at her. I thought everyone could be bought, she said. I thought kindness was fake. I thought people only behaved when watched. She gestured toward Yusuf. He proved me wrong. Madame Zainab reached for the envelope of money and held it out to Amina. Take this, she said. Amina shook her head immediately. No, madam, she said. I only want to work. I don't want pity. Madame Zainab's eyes softened. This is not pity, she said. It is payment. Your son gave me a lesson I forgot a long time ago. She placed the envelope into Amina's hands. Use it for him, she added. For school. For clothes. For peace of mind. Amina's hands trembled as she accepted it. She bowed her head, unable to speak. Madame Zainab then looked at Yusuf. You didn't take what wasn't yours, she said. You gave what was. Yusuf nodded slightly. Madame Zainab felt something settle in her chest. A calm she had not felt in years. She realized she had been rich in money but poor in trust. For the first time, she did not feel alone. She straightened up and looked at them both. "The test is over," she said. But in her heart, she knew something else had just begun. After Madame Zainab spoke, the room stayed quiet and no one rushed to leave and no one knew what to say next. Amina still held the envelope. She looked at it, then at Yusuf. She wanted to return it, but something in Madame Zainab's eyes stopped her. This was not pride speaking. This was sincerity. Madame Zainab cleared her throat. "Sit down," she said. Amina hesitated, then slowly sat with Yusuf beside her. He leaned against her side, tired but calm. Madame Zainab watched them for a moment. The way the boy stayed close. The way the mother rested her hand on his head without thinking. She realized how long it had been since anyone sat near her without fear. "I need to say something," Madame Zainab began. "I have lived my life believing I did not need people. I was wrong." Amina listened quietly. "I have money," Madame Zainab continued, "but I do not have peace. Today, your son showed me something I lost." She turned to Yusuf. "You were not afraid to give," she said, "even when it hurt." Yusuf shrugged slightly. "My mama is more important." Those words stayed in the air. Madame Zainab nodded slowly. "I want you to come here after school," she said. "Not to work, just to be here." Amina's eyes widened. "I will make sure you get the best education," Madame Zainab added. "From primary school to the end." Amina stood up quickly. "No, madam," she said. "That is too much. We cannot accept that." Madame Zainab raised her hand gently. "This is not charity," she said. "It is an agreement." She picked up the toy car from the table and held it up. "You gave me this," she said to Yusuf. "So now I owe you." Yusuf looked at the toy, then at her. "You can keep it," he said. "I gave it." Madame Zainab smiled faintly. "Then I will keep it," she said. "But I will return something greater." She leaned forward. "I need someone to remind me how to be human again," she said. "You will help me." Yusuf thought for a moment. He looked at his mother. Amina's eyes were wet. She nodded slowly. "Okay," Yusuf said. Madame Zainab felt something loosen inside her. For the first time in years, she felt hope. Not the hope of profit or success, but the hope of connection. She stood up slowly. "This house has been quiet for too long," she said. "That ends today." Amina held Yusuf's hand tightly. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt safe. Madame Zainab looked at the toy car again and placed it carefully beside her. This was not a business deal. It was a promise, and she intended to keep it. Years passed. Yusuf grew. He went to school. He returned every day after classes just as promised. He did his homework near Madame Zainab. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they stayed quiet. She watched him grow, and in watching him, she changed. Madame Zainab became softer. She listened more. She laughed sometimes. The house was no longer ruled by fear. Amina rose from being a house help to someone trusted. Decisions were shared. Respect replaced tension. Madame Zainab did not change overnight, but she changed steadily. When she fell ill years later, she did not fight it with anger. She was calm. She had no regrets about money. Her only concern was order. When she passed away, her children came quickly. They discussed property. They discussed shares. They expected everything to fall into their hands. Yusuf was older now. He stood quietly at the side. He did not speak. He did not compete. A letter was read. In it, Madame Zainab spoke plainly. She said she had raised children who knew the value of wealth but not the value of people. She said she was not punishing them. She was rewarding truth. She wrote that the person who gave her the most when she had nothing was Yusuf. Not money, not service, kindness. She left most of her wealth in trust under his name. Education funds, foundations, businesses with instructions to help others. Her children protested. They argued. But the decision was final. When everything settled, Yusuf was given one last item. The toy car. It was cleaned. The missing wheel had been fixed with gold. Not to make it expensive, but to honor what it represented. Yusuf held it carefully. He did not smile. He missed her. Amina stood beside him. She placed her hand on his shoulder. They had both gained more than money. Years later, Yusuf became known, not for how much he owned, but for how much he gave. He built schools. He supported families. He listened. When people asked him where his strength came from, he never spoke about wealth. He showed them the toy car. He said a woman once taught him that money without kindness is empty, and a child once taught a rich woman how to love. Madame Zainab did not leave behind just property. She left behind a changed life, and that was her greatest inheritance. And that's the end of today's tale. We hope it brought a smile, a thought, or a little bit of magic to your day. If you enjoyed the story, please like the video, subscribe to Tales Vibe for more weekly tales, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our story family all around the world. Until next time, keep your heart open, your imagination alive, and remember, laughter and lessons always go hand in hand. See you in the next story.